Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's video. This week's video is going to be an experiment where I set up a hypothesis and then I am to validate or falsify that hypothesis. And the experiment that I want to do this week is called media ownership bias. And I'm going to try and go through 4 different sections in sort of a scientific little way. I'm going to go through introduction, which why are we doing this, method, how are we doing this, results, what are the results, pretty self-explanatory, and a small discussion. So, as an introduction, the propaganda model proposes 5 filters which systematically bias media. And one of them is that media is owned, and there's 3 types of owning a media: privately owned, state-owned, and publicly owned. And today we're going to be looking at privately and state-owned, state being in this case governmentally owned. It's owned by the state. And to do this, I would like to set up a hypothesis. It's a null hypothesis, which means that I'm saying there's no correlation between whether it's a privately owned or a state-owned media company. And there's no correlation between that and the amount of criticism and praise that it gives its own state or other foreign states. And the way we're going to be testing this, or the way I'm going to be testing this, is I'm going to be selecting 5 state-owned medias and 5 privately owned medias. And I'm going to look at their last 20 videos on YouTube. And I'm going to try and analyze them for sentiment into the following 5 categories: neutral, pro-state, anti-state, pro-foreign state, and anti-foreign state. Sort of along with our hypothesis, right? Which we're trying to prove or disprove. And the way we're going to be doing that, these are the 20 videos of one of the companies that I looked at. And I would analyze them for sentiment. So let's say we're looking for pro-state information. You may have found, China becomes happier. Inclusive education brings sunshine. China's red line should never be crossed. Or, the fact that it has no concentration camps is also a bingo bango bonus. Or the fact that, look at this one Uyghur who has a music career. That must mean they're not oppressed. So these are the ones that I selected to be sort of pro-state information. Next, we're going to be looking at sort of neutral information. There they are, random stuff with little to no context. And then lastly, news against other states. Now, I've done this for a total of 10 different medias, and the data for this can be found in the description. And here's what I found. State-owned media is generally 47% neutral, has neutral information. 30% is pro-state, 6 or 7% is anti-state, a little pro of other governments, and mostly anti-governments. And this was tested on CNA and CNA Insider, which are both Singapore government-owned medias, and New China, CGTN, and South China Morning Post both have close ties to the Chinese government. Now, for privately owned media, we see a distinctly different trend, but we'll discuss that in discussion. You see there's neutral is again like 43%. Pro-state is interestingly below 7%, which is a vast difference to the previous 30%. Anti-state is at 45%. And this was mainly due to the fact that it was political squabbles in the United States. So it was a lot of anti-Democrat, as you can see Fox News representing, or pro-Democrat or anti-Republican rhetoric. Very little positive things to say about other governments, but you can always talk shit. So a little bit anti other governments. So we have entered the discussion. We can pretty clearly say that the hypothesis is wrong. There's clearly a correlation between, look at that. Look at that. Those are distinctly different graphs, so our hypothesis is wrong. And now I want to quickly discuss the limitations of this, because realistically, this isn't science, and what I've done is more akin to chucking babies against walls than science. Yeah, that wasn't a good metaphor, was it? But, another limitation of me. I'll add Anton to that later. The limitations of this study are public media should have been included. There are several, like ABC in Australia, although they're government funded. A larger number of medias should have been included, so more than 10. Sentiment is something that I feel like, right, when we went through those videos, you might have disagreed with me on a couple of those, on whether they would have been pro-media or pro-other government or something like that. So it's not an empirical thing. And the content of the video is not necessarily accurately depicted through the title/image, which could be a problem. All right. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you.